This training is for the Open Doors Peer Program. Open Doors is funded by the New York State Department of Health as part of the Money Follows the Person demonstration. This training will help you as a peer advocate help people leaving nursing facilities develop a plan they can implement in the event of a flood, hurricane, snowstorm, or other disaster.
Emergency preparedness, just how to be ready for, a whole myriad of potentially dangerous situations, how to access all the services that they might need, developing a plan, and, practicing that plan.
In an emergency, participants will need some basic supplies. Participants need to be prepared to be self-sufficient for at least 72 hours. Many of these items can be obtained at the local dollar store. Basic go-bag items include water, at least 2 gallons of water per person per day. Include small bottles that can be carried easily in case of an evacuation order. Food that will not spoil, such as canned food, energy bars, and dried food. The participant should replace food and water once a year.
On the back of my chair, I have what's called a go bag. It's filled with emergency supplies, so if I have to get out at some point, I have a bag of supplies with me to go. I'm on the vintage, you can see, so I have all the replacement parts.
This is like a go bag for every day, a very small amount of things to carry. And you do not have to carry everything I have in here, but you need certain essentials. One of them is a flashlight with a whistle and a piece of paper that lists your medications, allergies, and doctors. So that if some sort of emergency happens, this is right in your bag and you've got it handy, so if 911 has to be called, when you go to the hospital, this is the minimum daily requirement. Medications, allergies, doctors, you can remember that by MAD. If you have this written down, it's just going to be at your disposal. And then if you never need it, great. But if you do need it, you have it. This little book of ideas, skills, and practices is, at its most basic, an advocacy to survival toolbox. It is full of ideas for everything from when you go to the doctors, what kind of things should you have ready before you go to the doc or to the emergency room. Paperwork, usually, is the most important thing in those cases. What should you have ready in case of an emergency? What are your greatest risks in your geologic area that you live in? Everybody's go bag is individual to them because it's going to depend on what they need most and what they feel is important. Things like photos that are precious, that could never be replaced, might be so important that somebody wants to put either a USB disc with all their photos in their go bag or maybe a little album with their most precious photos, so they wouldn't lose them on the flight. Other things that are important are practice drills, and the book talks about involving children in practice drills. This is so important because kids, like adults, become very fearful in an emergency. It doesn't matter what the emergency is. They can sense the fear in the adults around them. So when you have a practice drill, you can help the kids to feel less fearful, and the adults even feel less fearful.
I have what I call a file of life, and this is a paper that I've written all of my contact information, my doctor's names and numbers, the medications that I'm taking, my allergies, any surgical history, or anything that a medical professional or an emergency medical technician might need to know if they were to come to my house. My personal assistant staff who work for me all know where that is, and they know that if anything happens to me and I have a medical emergency, they just need to hand that red file to the emergency medical technicians or the paramedics when they come. In the same vein, I also have contact information and emergency contact information for all of my staff, so that if something happens and I'm expecting them to come to work and they're late and I can't reach them, I have a way to contact their emergency contact and I can call them or I can email them and say, you know, Sally was supposed to show up to work. I can't reach her. She hasn't called. I just want to make sure she's okay. 9 times out of 10, something benign has happened. But if I don't know that I need to be looking for someone else, then I'm not preparing, and then I could end up in trouble. When emergencies happen, and it could be anything. It could be the power going out. It could be there's a heavy thunderstorm, and now there's flash flooding. It could be that we have a blizzard, and the snow isn't getting plowed, so your personal assistant can't get down your street to get to you. It's important that you think about the what ifs and maybe hypothesize a list of what you could do in a certain situation. My name is Denise Denoto. I am employed at Consumer Directed Choices as the Communications and Outreach Specialist. So I spend my day talking and educating people about consumer-directed personal assistance and how people with disabilities can maintain independence by living in the community and managing their own care. I've used a wheelchair all of the time for my community mobility. Since 1994, I've had my disability all of my life, and I've used personal care at home since 2007 from paid staff. Prior to that, I managed my independence with a network of family, friends, and formal support. Nobody likes to think about the bad things that could happen, but you have to, because realistically, they could happen at any time. And if you're not ready for it, you may not have a plan in place, but having a plan helps you stay calm in a moment where you might have high anxiety or not knowing what to do next.
What would you recommend to people coming out of nursing facilities or people who are isolated and don't have a network? How would you tell them to build one?
I would suggest that people coming out of nursing homes or some kind of institutional living, one of the first places they can connect with is the Independent Living Center, because we are well versed in what would be available in the community in terms of interest, in terms of needs, in terms of medical transportation, anything that person coming out of the institution might need to know as they settle into their new living situation. My name is Patty King, and I have lived in Plattsburgh all my life. I have a lifelong disability, and I think we need to believe in ourselves enough, no matter how young or old we are. We need to believe in ourselves enough to make the effort, to become involved, to share our experience. Because if we don't, then we forfeit our place in the community, which we have fought so hard to obtain to begin with. Anyone who has a lifeline in their home, it is a direct connection to almost immediate response if you have an emergency. Like you need to go to the hospital, there's a fire, you've fallen out of bed, fallen out of your wheelchair. So all I have to do is press a button, and that a unit up there kicks off, and even though they're in Massachusetts, a live person comes on there and says, "Patty King, do you need help?" And I would say, "Yes, I've fallen. I can't get up by myself, and no one is here, and I need assistance." And they would immediately contact usually the fire department, which is right behind my house, as a matter of fact. And they would come over and pick me up and either get me back on the bed or back in my chair, and that's happened a few times. Yep. So it's an immediate response mechanism if you have an emergency.
Well, I'm Mike Gilmore, been here for 58 years. We sort of rebuilt the whole house from pretty much from scratch. And it's my wife Carol, right?
You want to tell people?
Yeah, well, all right, I won't tell anybody. So, anyway, she's had a problem. She ended up in a nursing home. And I wanted to bring her home, and everybody was against it. My kid and my granddaughter were calling me all kinds of names and yelling and screaming that I was selfish and I wanted to take her out of the nursing home that she had so many friends with and so much to do down there. Well, it seems every time I went down, which was on Sunday afternoons, the only time I could get there because my daughter took me down. I didn't have my car on the road. And I go down there and she was just ready to go to lunch. So she went down to lunch. She sat at a table with 5 other women. All they did was sit there and stare at the floor in the middle of the table. No one talked. Nobody visited or anything. For all the friends she had. And all you could hear was the moaning and groaning around you from everybody else that actually really needed to be in there. Which is unfortunate, but that's the way it works, I guess. So after a period of time, I decided I was going to take her out of there. So I had a discharge meeting with them down there, which they told me all kinds of stuff. They had a letter from my doctor saying that I had dementia and that I wasn't capable of taking care of her. My daughter and granddaughter told them the same thing, except for the dementia. They said I couldn't take care of her at home. I'm here 24 hours a day with nothing else to do except take care of her. And we've been together long enough, I probably know her wants and needs, so I decided I was going to bring her home. But they told me I couldn't do that. They were going to have to call the police and have me arrested if I take her out, AMA and all. And so I just checked with the lawyer at Legal Aid, and he told me that I was perfectly within my rights, that I was her legal aid, and that I could take her out anytime I wanted.
One of the unfortunately far too common things that we see with people wanting to move home from nursing facilities are all these like obstacles that they put up in the way. You know, saying that a spouse has some condition, or saying that the house is inaccessible. Obviously, this took some perseverance. Like, what would you tell people about hanging in there?
Well, if you want it, you've got to hang in there. You can't just give up. Most of the time, you got legal rights to what you're doing.
How do you meet people?
Probably through the church. Probably the easiest way to get started.
Emergency planning isn't just a one-time thing, or it shouldn't be, because life changes. And so sometimes the plan has to change. Sometimes you make improvements, and so the plan can change because your needs change. Sometimes you have an accident and you fall and break a bone, so the plan has to change because, again, your needs have changed. Whenever you hire new staff, it's a good idea to review the plan to make sure everybody's still on board with the plan. Even your staff who have been there a while may not remember what your plan is. Businesses and offices and schools have fire drills, and they have drills for other emergencies. It's a good idea for you to review your plan as well on a regular basis. And that may look different for you depending on how often you have staff turnover or how often your needs change. if you've had the same staff with you for several months, maybe you don't have to review your plan as frequently. But if you've had a recent hospitalization, or if you've just come home from a nursing home or a rehab center and have new medical equipment or a new diagnosis or a new plan of activity, maybe you have to sit down and review your plan with everyone again.